Like on the other side of a great big event, we are still here. It is great to be here. I am Keith Landi, your happy healer. The time now is 1:35 a.m. I am running for President of the United States because I have cause, reason, ambition, and we intend to make a life worth living. Let us open in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, oversee our progress. Help us through these times when people need their eyes opened the most and their hearts opened the most and their lives to be expanded upon this great earth gift of life you have given us. Allow them to see the dream and become inspired by your happy healer, who has become also inspired by your greatness. Allow us to do this very evening. Amen. Welcome to the program. I have a good one here for you because we're talking about some crazy stuff going on in our time. We just can't deny those times. If we wanted to, we wouldn't want to anyway, because it's the truth, and the truth shall set you free. The truth is the power of having the right prescription for our times, and that's why we have to do the right thing in this time. So let's talk about that. Folks these days seem lost in the very truth of reality in our times, not acting within the nature around them and being led down a path that is least helpful to self-preservation, which is bad for all people, and it's bad for self-determination. There's a book that my friend J.J. Samuelson gave me called The Most Dangerous Superstitions by Larkin Rose. He believes that the government is taking too much control and that we're losing our very self-determination to a public increasingly becoming more and more submissive and less determination. It's the very opposite of what our founding fathers wanted or expected of us. And yet, our democracy, in which our participation demands our participation, gets it right, where we can lose any determination at all, which makes a dictatorship seem like the better bet. And I contend that we're seeing the likes of which those local conditions for all that I know in history, and just seeing how low the American morale is. And we have to gain a foothold back, and we're in real risk of losing our self-determination if we don't. And that is a fact, my American brothers and sisters. My friend's point of view, I understand, and I know that my plan will allow us the order of government opposed to no government at all. But yet he has a point nonetheless. As Americans who are in power and control the conditions of our times, and as a 40-year-old man who possesses the unique skills our country needs of its leaders, I so nobly step forward with the wish to bring a united America into a modern 21st century era. I want to do this in a responsible manner, required by our destiny and Mother Nature herself, and indeed our Creator, if there's one, and that Creator is telling us what our next step must be, and it's clear in plain sight if we possess the savvy and the ability within our human condition to rise to this occasion, and indeed is our greatest desire. We have to get government back to serving the people, and honest to God, we know that the people are the humanity that matter, that have purpose and value. It's important for us to remember that fact and promote our very democracy from which our founders from so long ago have found our very notion of freedom shrining within our founding documents the word self-determination. And that, to me, is exactly what following a plan in line with our human destiny allowed us to do, exactly that which enriches the very notion of self-determination. And that if we don't get to that work quickly, we may not only show no determination at all in this critical and pivotal times, but that the failure to have an age of enlightenment now may be very well to be the reason that we go extinct, or at best go into another dark ages, neither of which is good for Americans or humanity, as it so happens to be. Think of this, my fellow Americans. We have already did both of those, with one being done before the other led to the current times we have now. Based on that roadmap and knowing our history, so then, do you also think we should follow that same path now? Or should we have another age of enlightenment, followed by a vastly expansive reality and creating a feedback loop in which humanity is ever increasingly advancing in stages and raising, and it's even made necessary by our times? That feedback loop reaffirms the reason we must get organized and motivated and get advanced people organized to the task of Mother Nature herself. Because it seems we have gone already into a new age of technology while leaving human development behind, stuck on auto drive, while nature itself seemingly pushing our progress forward in an individual human sense. That love and passion for succeeding causes in us a yearning desire for progress, and that's on all fronts. Humanity has always had this forward-leaning progressive state about it, and now is no different. Nature itself is also seemingly playing along, as we have seen our own advancement quadrupled the prior growth rate increases, and even faster throughout many segments throughout the technology sector, while humanity itself is almost frozen in time and introduced without purpose. And this is a new technological age where we must get familiar with the many crises before us and start thinking like the forward-thinking scientists, and they have been saying these facts for a very long time. All the while, technology has been showing year over year, supernatural almost, and it goes unnoticed, sucked up by greed, which only takes and gives no quarters and takes no prisoners and does nothing. But we knew that anyway, because we know that it was love that made it all possible. Love from scientists, innovators, forward thinkers, and creators like me have been hard at this work for so many years now. We are in a new age, folks, the likes of which came under the guise of our great self-determination, whereas that love was manifested upon us this great age, which now greed has kept us all of it for itself, and yet our self-determination through true love, and it shall now also then create a new world and meet the many great challenges of our time, should we so have the courage to do it, based on that same compassionate and loving work, with plans that actually have the hope of leading us to the gradual transition in a more naturally self-inducing and self-encompassing and self-systems of love through a systematic feedback loop. Love is so powerful that through it each individual becomes professional peace officers and peer mediators to mitigate these stress-inducing factors. So many people are hostile. They're constantly fed bad news and sad news and the constant bickering of both sides, coupled with the clear and present danger of our times, and the present knowledge that this sudden fashion that comes upon people, it seems to be an appetite for blood of the opponent in the air like never before, instead of a keen desire for each of us to succeed and to catch up in our technological times like we need to be doing. That's why I've been calling for a great new age of redemption, by which all people can accept a new way of doing things, a better way of doing things, more in line with what would be exactly what we need to do, that would create a system that would take care of the people. There are many ways to go about achieving this, but achieving this we must. And that is why I must stay nimble and in the cause of freedom, and be an honest broker of truth, and realize that I need to help give cause and calm and ease the American populace in a time of our greatest need, and to stand up and to serve my country that way. This really makes the ultimate common sense to so many of us when we really get down to our inner thoughts and what is best for us and others. That is exactly how a happy healer thinks. Instead of just what is best for self, we know that what is in some sense of the definition, what is best for self is best for humanity. And that which is best for all of humanity, it's what makes the quality of life for the individual a happier soul. It's what that individual wanted the whole time, which is to say the greatest realization of their very own self-determination was actually intertwined within the love that binds us, and the spirits that encompasses our collective consciousness. For many, that enriches the human experience. We must put value in that human experience within our laws. We have learned to respect the letter of the law. Now let that letter of the law show us our value in black and white, so that the people can see our promise, taking care of humanity, fulfilled. And we do that by putting humanity over capitalism. And we do it because it's the life-enhancing and sustaining thing to do in our time. It's overdue. Humanity's expedient drive and aptitude for its passions over its greed is a testament to the power of love and its cousins and all the things that comes from love. Then couple that with the human spirit and our internal nature innate with us, that unique drive that separates us from all other species on this planet. Given nature, this planet and itself is telling us, and our political state is so far lacking compared with the comprehensive development of the individual human being, that in many ways our collective soul, having been so sick, absent when needed most, is now in turmoil. Given nature itself is telling us it's time, and now our political state is so far lacking compared with the comprehensive development of the individual human being, that in many ways our collective soul, having been so sick, absent when needed most, is now in this moment needing us. It's sad, and people are making up whatever reality that best fits the narrative, that's most convenient and that's most comforting to the perception in which they perceive this world. And that's how they dictate that truth. They just acknowledge what's best for them. And especially in popular culture now, you seem to have two cultures now in which mainstream narratives that gives you two choices of selection. Again, which do you prefer to lead you down? Again, to lead you down, not for you to lead yourself down. That is why you never catch on that your developed reality has been driving away from the natural truth, as I like to call it, God's truth, which is all around us. And that seems to be your choice. Yet those of us who pay the most attention, we see both directions are dead ends to the same broken results, which leads to a point of no return, right off a cliff indeed. The failure to meet the critical objectives critical to our human soul by the unique gravity of the human soul's needs at this moment. After all, this is what makes all of us feel best in a very hateful world, and that's why people choose to do that. It just makes a bunch of sense for them, which tells me most people are very egocentric right now, which also explains how we're running into this mess in the first place. We've been told for so long to be ourselves, and that message stuck, and we're basically just being ourselves and whatever we feel like being and whatever's best for us. We all sense very awake time, and our sense of self is heightened, and we're anxious with nowhere to lend this energy. So there's a part of us that wants to feel safe and secure in ourselves and its own world. And while this is required living skills in our time, it's holding us back. And this has essentially been our ongoing state, because the American human spirit, individual and collective, is on auto drive and is in a system of greed, making too many concessions to a greedy world that it ought not make. And it's lashing out, and it's very angry. There's been way too many concessions. We end up with many mistakes. One of them being, we know what that leads to. The last time it happened to a Dark Ages. It led to Dark Ages, and we shouldn't let that happen again, my fellow Americans. And that is from an honest broker of truth's perspective. And we see us marching right down that path of oblivion. But there is a guaranteed option, although what this one is not a good one, and it equals our sudden demise when Mother Nature herself seems to be screaming in our very souls, and nature around us with reality itself even reaffirming the clear message: humanity, you better get your shit together, because it's either that or go through another Dark Ages where this time we can hope to retain some of our history. Folks, the decision is about that stark, and we have all of that as being true. And also there are many concerning things related to China and how I think we should proceed in these trying times. And we need to tread carefully so as not to cause too much world instability, because most important to anything, before we interrupt our supply chain, we begin to manufacture a new supply chain base of our own for automated manufacturing based on a self-sustained, artificial intelligence future, sustained through co-human and co-robotic infrastructure that serves America's infrastructure and people. Doing this will also allow our people to fuel a new value in the human experience and raising the human morale. And when we do that, we make possible the very fundamental progress we need to spur new value in the American dollar. Doing these things will also speed up new economic value, just like my opponent Andrew Yang suggests. However, he is not talking about going as far as I am, which is to address many more issues, and I would bring the victory he would lack, because should President Trump win, those dreams are gone. But with me, it's a Forshire win. It's for sure. We bring Trump's folks. And I'm part of their segment in many ways, and I understand, and they feel exactly as I do in so many ways, and yet they have been working their way towards these ends, and yet we can hurry up there in a rather unique way, because we have vision and we look far enough into that future, and we find a place where those paths meet together again, where everything becomes one and clear, and then... And my plan is such a plan, and it's such a path, and it's the most forward-thinking plan to date. And quite frankly, in my view, it is God's plan. It's my will to me as becoming the happy healer, as I've been able to conjure up these processed thoughts that leads to very easy conclusions. It's focused on empathy and kindness, truth, justice in the American way. We will have a super consumer and we will create new wealth. And the American dream, equal to the modern age in which we live, will also speak on some relative concerns and our behaviors as Americans. It's time for us to start becoming honest brokers of truth and realize we have our democracy at stake and our children, and we're losing our way of life to this freedom warfare and our culture and this PC. And we'll have to pull back a bit on this insanity. And we just took it too far as a nation. And we'll just make it a major platform in my candidacy because unity is so important to me, and we can have it if we approach this carefully. People are at this point demanding action. We have to deliver it because our national emergency crisis on several fronts demands nothing less of it. And we've talked about it, and they include but aren't limited to China, in which we'll discuss this evening, and Russia and North Korea, among a host of other countries. Indeed, many more than you would imagine wish to see the United States in disunity, and shall continue to do things to make that a reality. We have to be aware of that, and we have the typical things that we all know about global warming, which is showing its head out everywhere in some way or another. And we have to consider terrorism is still a major threat. And we have just as many enemies as we've ever had before, don't we? And we seem to have hit a rut. And we can't afford this rut when we have so many pressing issues. And let's face it, I have not even touched on the many threats we are already facing, including nuclear proliferation and the new potential arms race that is really already off to a new start, isn't it? Where are the people when it comes to be outraged about this? They themselves have become a threat to themselves. And they call me insane. I have to be very careful because some people love to attack the messenger. And given my luck, and my friends will tell you, I have had it so incredibly unfair with law enforcement and the entire legal system for that matter. And yet I think it was just bad luck and circumstance more than it was to do with the fact that I'm a lover in a hater's world. And there's a certain expectation that's made of all people that do not apply to your happy healer. And it's been a while for me, and it's which I've been victimized by folks like Taj. And they were a threat in my house, like Jennifer together with Taj. And that story is going to come out when it's time. It's really not a big deal. It's just a long drawn out story, folks. And folks, this is the right way to move forward. We know that we must deal with the current issues of our time, or we will all suffer together. So why not get ahead of the game and take care of our people and allow ourselves the courage to deal with the calamities that are all but waiting for us in a short time from now. And we know what they look like and almost where they will be and at what time. And we do nothing. Why is it that we do nothing? We need to be organizing and researching, and indeed, in my humble view, having a new age of enlightenment in order to achieve these things. We all recognize it's a great and it's a great humanity measure in God's plan. And we have to do it for our survival. Given our lost age of enlightenment and our last stage of enlightenment, it resulted in new developments that created fossil fuels and are now artificial intelligence and robotic industry. And if we fail to reach these new heights that we talk about, then it's going to be hard for the United States to work its way out of the current nightmares such as the global warming. And then you'll see the morale further to depreciate and the anger to continue to uptick and the homegrown extremists. We live in a time when it's perfectly normal to talk negatively of our country and its people. It's politically correct to be unpleasantly annoying, that which people you don't agree with, and it's becoming more acceptable in this cycle in which this greedy system operates. We have to gather ourselves quickly, folks, if we're to live up to the times as they are handed to us by our forefathers. And they also handed us the key to our own survival, and that America should have its own self-determination. Let us now be determined to gain our own senses back and our sense of purpose and direction back, and appeal our people back to that higher purpose of human value, and placing our human value over capitalism, that we won't put a price on humanity, but rather we're a nation of laws, and that the human value of every American, best shown by our self-determination, will provide for all human beings, and we can show that in law. To provide an atmosphere where we can all thrive to dream, to be something great, and to serve back to the almighty experience of being alive in these great times. We all knew we lived in great times, but to be placed in such a predicament that should we fail to live up to our true potential now, well, then it may otherwise all come falling down. The entire house of cards falls because we just failed to make the right decision for the human soul and provide for our human bodies in this life, and to achieve that high morale, and to achieve that high endeavor, and to address our current crisis, but also afford us the current ability to see America honor its position to lead America and the world, and to show the world how to navigate through this complicated future as it fast approaches. All around us we have a new age sprouting up, and it's time humanity itself catches up. And that's our new age of enlightenment explained, folks. And then I had a friend on Facebook who generously supports me and is talking about the kind of content that I'm sharing in relation to the office that which I am seeking. And she says, it's too damn depressing, and that we're all friends. And she just wants to joke and laugh and have fun, and life is too short for all the anger and for all the frustration that we all hear from haters. And we're going straight into a depression. I couldn't agree more. It's a bit that way, isn't it? But you know, we can have both. And I have side groups, that of the submantics brands of passions. I say, you could always go there, and I always respond, and they're group oriented. And I just have to talk about this kinds of stuff. And today I talk politics related stuff because I think that I'm going to be your next president. And it's at very least a real possibility because of my ideas alone. They're life-preserving. No other candidate on the ballot has any plan to save our way of life, to keep that way of life going. You say this is a short life, and you know it is, and I know it is too, and I say yet made shorter even by insanity, and all I say is I don't want to accept that. And that's why I always say it's about a life worth living, just as much as it is about anything else. I really want to carry on to a future and a life worth having, folks. It's really a great dream. In order to have a happy, fair, and mentally rewarding, human-centric life and centers on our happiness, we need that. And we need security. And we need many things. And a steady leader. I am that. One of my supporters told me earlier that I'm a thinker. I'm a right man for the job. And I said, yes, thank you. I see so much, and I see you. And I see how so intense some people are just hitting that block. They defy the very nature of truth itself. And they're so decisively wrong in their actions, beyond all measures wrong, and yet still their actions. Not because they're dealing with their honest broker of truth, but because they blocked their honest broker of truth. And that, my friends, is the part at which they hit that block with me, your very honest broker of truth, every time I talk from that honest broker of truth. And I show that extreme levels on both sides how they do that. And at some point I am changing all for a more moderate stance, one that includes unity and life. And that all-encompassing purpose and value that a life worth living is the way to go. I'm going to leave you with one final glimpse into the mind of the individual to which finds himself lost in the truth today in America. I will leave you with this. So many just in their own world, with no adherence to the unbiased truth all around us. They have simply let any necessity to truth go wayside to a larger political and subsequently insane excuse to serve in necessity's place. Because there will never be necessity enough to get away from the unbiased truth that serves you, unless you're insane enough to believe that a lie serves you better. And that seems to be where so many people are today. And that, folks, that's just the truth of our time. Thank you. What I want to do now is I want to segue into some situational stuff happening, which is directly related to our time. And this is with Donald Trump reacting to, well, let's bring it up. It's a story, and I'm going to read it to you. So this is it. This is Donald Trump here. And what I want to do is I'm just going to read off this to you and read the story. And this is about the White House insists Trump has authority to block American companies from doing business in China. You might have heard about this. Well, I have a few things I want to say about this because it's actually one of those issues that really affects this country and also the plan that we're talking about in this campaign, quite frankly. And we're very serious about that. So let us go ahead and get into this just a bit here, and let's start reading this off. This is the White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow asserted President Trump's trade wanted to block between China, saying he has emergency economic power to do so. Do you believe that the president does have the authority to block the private business from investing in China? This is a CBS News. Margaret Brennan asked Kudlow on Face the Nation Sunday. Ultimately, he does have authority, responded Kudlow. It's an emergency economic power authority, he said, adding Trump is not intending to block trade with China at this time. Amid an escalating trade war, Trump, in a series of angry tweets Friday, ordered American companies to immediately start looking for an alternative to China, including bringing our companies home and making your products in the United States of America. Trump's directive came at Trump's directive came before he announced a plan to put the additional tax on $300 billion worth Chinese goods beginning September 1st. Trump was responding to China's plan to increase tariffs on $75 billion worth of Americans' goods. So he says, we don't need China, and frankly, would be far better off without them, he said. That's what he said. I'm really concerned about that. I don't think that's smart. I think that we need to give ourselves a little bit more room. And he's talking like somebody who's got a political timeline rather than... He's saying that we don't need China and we'll be far better off without him, without having another way of supplying for America's consumers. And I'm thinking about that because we have a new world to get into. So he goes on, but that wouldn't necessarily create jobs. Instead, the production would likely shift to other countries and Asia, following up on his demand for businesses to cut ties with China. Trump cited the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, which gives the president broad powers to deal with any unusual or extraordinary threat, which has its short and hollow substantials: national security, foreign policy, or economy of the United States, if the president declares a national emergency with respect to such threats. So this is his tweet. For all the fake news reporters that don't have a clue as to what the laws relative to presidential powers, China, etc., try looking at the Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977. Case closed. What he's trying to say is he's got the power, and that's not reassuring. I'd be a reassuring president. August 23rd, 2019. Here we go. So the law. This is serious news, guys. The law, which was first used by President Jimmy Carter during the 1979 Iran hostage crisis to sanction Iran to freeze its assets, has been used in 54 national emergencies, 29 of which are ongoing, according to CNN. Earlier this year, Trump threatened to use the law to place tariffs on Mexican imports in an effort to stem illegal border crossings. And so that's the article. And let me tell you, I think right now it is a hysterical thing to do it this way. I think he is adhering to a political expedience that says, this is how I best control the people. This is how I make them worry. This is how I make them scared. This is how I keep my base. This is how I. And he is controlling people so perfectly. And I see it. As an honest broker of truth, I tell you it. It's just the truth. And we have to get bright to what's happening. We have to know. And we have to respect that truth. I'm going to go ahead and put our nice background back up. The beautiful one. It's just the truth, guys. And we have to get serious about our times. We have Donald Trump, who's now making action because you know he has to. You know it. He can't look like a fool, and he's got the political expedience. Everything for him is going to be about the greed first. He's living in the greedy system. It has to show out. It can't do the right thing. It affords itself no ability to do that. That's why I would make a great president, because I am nimble in the moment to do what is right for the people, not what is the expedient thing. That's why we have to have a president that comes from the bottom, I contend. And I say, get a president from the bottom for our own sake, for your sake, for self-preservation. It's why I know that if we do that and we do it right, that we can go on and we can go on persisting and we can live and have a life worth living. And that people can feel encouraged and warm, knowing that their happy healer, with truth, justice, and the American way in mind, just wants to serve the American people in this greatest time of need. He is not one of those condescending candidates, nor will he ever be. He does not work on their time schedule. They don't work hard enough. They spend too much of their time going after fundraising, not doing the great work which our people are requiring of our leaders in these grave times. And that's just the way running for president in America has always been. However, we are doing things in a different way, using media and using the direct ability of our time to get directly to the people and speak to them. It's just a wonderful thing. So it's true, we have our ups, we have our downs, but we always just do come around, and I love it always solves the problem. And I know that the answer is found there, and for those things that seldom do go wrong, eventually get right when you love. And that's why love is always the right way. And I love talking about the happy healer virtues and values, and that's why I don't want Donald Trump to do anything to get in the way of my ability to put happy healer to work for the United States of America. It's just so important. We have to feel that truth now, in this time now. If we don't give our chance to us to feel that moment, then we shall never. That courage is within us. We just know it's true of these times, and what shall we do? The courage it's in us. What will we do in these times when I most needed you? These are the times. You don't get another chance, ladies and gentlemen. These are the times. You have to be honest with the truth as it is in front of you. That's God's truth. That's not my truth. Just like we universally know that God is love and truth. That's God's truth again. That's not a happy healer truth. That's a universal truth. And it's a great truth. Folks, there is so much going on in the world. We have to be pulling out our best and our brightest. We have to realize that right now is the time to really be pulling together and to be holding the fort, the American fort, and to hold our neighbor's hand and to say, I got you. I can show you the way. I can give you sight through kindness and through love. I can show you the way. I can give you sight. Love. It's all you gotta do. We don't need a new Cold War. Nuclear proliferation, global warming, all the many other calamities. All we need is love and a new world, and to usher in the new technological world that will come when our humanity finally together unites in a spiritual development that brings up the human spectra, that is able and capable of unity, that brings in this new spiritual world, and it has the unity to get it done. None of the other candidates provide that. They just don't have it in them, and they will not calm this nation. So just think of how insane people are, and that so far, as long as you can look into the future, they just get worse. That's why you know you need your happy healer. That's how you know you need it. That's God's truth. Again, we're just looking at the facts. That's why I said golly, even if I didn't want to run, I owe it to my country to run. The times are just too damn serious and grand. And I love my family too much, and I love you. I love you, and I love this country too. You better believe that. Because we only have one America, and you realize that when you travel this world, we have a great people and a great culture, and it's worth saving. So bring on with your happy healer then. We can do it, and I'm telling you so. You just gotta believe from here, and you have to know the truth, and that you have value and purpose, and that in this world you are meant to use that value. We're gonna bring it out of you. I love it. Folks, keep staying on a steady path, one that gives back to your soul. Be true to yourself. Take it from an honest broker of truth. Don't allow yourself to become drunk lust in love with a man who just wants his own way, or the highway. At the same point, don't become so filled with hate for the same man that you can't think straight. We have a country that needs to come first, my fellow Americans. Okay, we have a country, and it has to come first, whether you like it or not, okay? That's just the way it's gonna be. So get used to those slapjacks, because they're not changing. Because if you walked out there and you've seen the world just the way we always do, it's not changing, and it'll never change until we do what we're supposed to do, and that is what living in God's world looks like. Folks, it's 2:22 a.m. in the morning, and that is local happy healer time. On the western coast, I'm sure it's around 11:22. Either way, I am so grateful to have you here this evening. Thank you so very much. God bless you all. God bless this great country too. And we have so much work to do. Be with your happy healer in this mission forward. Be with your happy healer in every one of our missions, including the Landi Brands of Passions, which is there to help develop the soul and to bring the person forward and to help them see through these hard times, and to do it in togetherness, and to do it in unity, and together in unity we can overcome anything as Americans. It's within us to do that, and we will, as one nation under God, and indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. I am your happy healer. God bless you. God bless this great country too, and all your family too, and we'll see you next time.